Welcome to Warframe Weapon of the Week, also known as WOW, where we cover weapons that I've been having tons of fun with or that I think are particularly pretty strong. I'm going to cover some upsides, downsides of the weapon, show you gameplay, builds, use case, synergies, and give it a place in a massive tier list that we're going to be building video by video, week by week. Like, sub, hype, whatever, I love you guys to death. Don't forget to comment. Thank you guys so much for the support, and let's get started with the Haalvu. The Haalvu is a weapon released for TennoCon as a free drop, along with being available later on through Barrow or some upcoming content with the Tau update. Not really sure yet. These free weapons are generally pretty hit or miss, but I can definitely say this is one of the single best designed weapons in the entire game. It's got built-in sentient damage, which allows for Tau status, giving enemies status chance vulnerability up to 100%, super good, and the ability to split its barrel into 4 separated automated turrets, boasting above average solid base stats. For modding, this weapon's definitely pretty solid. It features the ability to act as a solid main damage driver as long as you give it a couple buffs, and also enables a ton of different warframes and their ability damage with statuses and priming. The Haalvu is a sentient light machine gun with a massive 150 round battery magazine, meaning there's no max ammo, it simply recharges after not firing for a bit. The reload speed is luckily fast regardless, which is nice because this weapon does have pretty decent ammo consumption, but that fire rate is something we're going to want on a primer and on a status based weapon. There are 2 firing modes present. The standard mode, which just fires a single stream of rounds quickly from rotary barrels, boasting slightly higher crit stats with slightly lower status chance, made for single target. However, alt firing swaps firing modes, detaching and splitting the barrel into automated mini turrets that fire off at the 4 nearest targets within 10 meters and a 40-degree cone from the player, with increased ammo consumption as well. So again, things like primary crux are going to be really strong here because this thing's going to dump for ammo really quickly. You can shoot enemies outside of the range still, it's just that the auto targeting stops working, which you're going to see here in a bit with a demonstration, that's actually going to be kind of a good thing in a lot of cases. The alternate mode features lower critical chance, but higher status chance, which is going to be what we want. Both modes do feature the innate Tau status due to sentient damage, which makes this weapon super unique. Ultimately, I think the main firing mode is kind of whatever. It's nowhere near bad, right? It drills down enemies pretty effectively, especially with a good build. It's just that if you want an assault rifle, LMG, whatever, there are just so many better options. The innate Tau isn't really good enough of a gimmick for me to say that it's competitive in that single target kind of category, despite it being quite solid, I would say. When these 2 weapons come out, there's just a lot of competition generally, especially in that category specifically, and unless you're just like outstatting the break stuff of other weapons, you need to have some sort of mechanic that separates you from the other weapons. Luckily, the Haalvu definitely has that in spades with its alternate firing mode. Being able to target 4 enemies at once, having that Tau status built in with solid base stats as well, like the fire rate and the battery, all that stuff, this weapon just kind of provides in any way that you'd ideally want it to. As a primary damage driver, it does excellent and loves most buffs that you can put onto it. I would say the best synergies that I have in mind, that have been the most broken for me, have been Jade Stars and Roar. The fast firing allows a lot of Jade Star uptime, and of course the status damage bias means that Roar is going to do really, really well. Without buffs, it still does all right, but I think you're kind of robbing yourself if you just try to raw dog with this weapon. It's not really what it's meant for. The weapon has a slight shortage of damage, but like a good targeting mechanic, right? And so when a weapon has that, it's okay because amping damage in Warframe is really easy, but making a single target weapon do what the Haalvu does is quite difficult compared to just increasing damage, right? This is definitely a weapon that's more unique. It's not the kind of like raw dog damage driver that you'd expect, but with some buffs, it just multiplies in power. This weapon also has something that I think the strongest part of it, in my opinion, is it as a support tool for other warframes that prioritize dealing damage through DOT status abilities. Your Protea, your Araxia, Gauss Thermal Sunder status compression, like the heat compression, Sarah and Noko, Gyre, Neja, Dante, using like the Harmony Scythe. There are a gazillion status synergies. It's also really broken for the majority of companion-centric builds, right? If your companion, your Nautilus, or maybe the Mecha set are kind of the center of your build's damage, right? You're going to be able to nuke even more insane with just very little effort because those auto turrets, again, you're just kind of pointing it in the direction of the thing that needs to go away, and then it goes away. That's usually how status works, luckily. So again, you have a primer weapon that can target 4 enemies automatically, primes viral quickly, double quickly because of Tau, how fast it goes, doubles the amount of statuses you're applying. You can do heat inherit stuff, you can apply a ton of corrosive, green shards, you can fully melt armor super quickly. Again, Tau accelerates your utility statuses twice as fast. In most cases, I would say it really comes out being like, maybe like not a little under twice as fast because you have to get 10 stacks of Tau first, but like again, you're getting your utility statuses like Viral and Corrosive on super quickly, and then you're also able to just drill heat or electric statuses on, or blast statuses on, blast cycle really quickly, which is just really, again, Tau status is really strong, and that coming as just a free thing onto this weapon, no mods, no nothing, along with the fire rate, is just really good. And the weapon's also, again, it's a battery weapon, which is incredibly convenient for a primer. That's why sometimes I like the Cycron over the new core, even if the new core does have like an extra status technically. The Cycron's battery mechanic is just better, right? And while I think that Tau will become less unique of a status as time goes on, given that's like the name of the next update, so there's probably going to be a lot more Tau weapons, I expect the Haalvu to be pretty unique for a very long time. I think the way this weapon functions makes it really shine as a primer support weapon, and so it basically, what your situation is if you buff it, it will do a lot for you. If you use it to buff, it'll do a lot for you. I don't think this is ever going to be the centerpiece of a lot of builds, but as a part of a bigger machine, it excels at an incredibly high degree. Alright, so taking a look at some builds here I've made for you guys. This is the main, what I call buff magnet build. Basically it's just, this is the one you're giving to like your Rhino, that has like Roar or Nourish, whatever, very basic weapons platform, not really many synergies besides just dealing lots of damage. This is what I would consider to be like the main damage driver build, one that I'm not a huge fan of, but it definitely does a pretty solid job. So mods are going to always want, and by the way, I would say this is about a 2 forma weapon. If you get 2 forma on this thing, it'll be pretty strong. And you'll be able to fit most of the mods that you want. Here, the only big thing is I've got 1 2-tick thermite rounds instead of 3, but the rest of my builds fit on 100%. So yeah, galvanized chamber, galvanized aptitude, these are 2 mods you're definitely going to want. Elementalist in most cases, because again, we're leaning into sentient damage and the Tau status. Here I've done just regular blast because I think it helps with killing a lot of enemies quickly. Again, you don't technically have AoE, right? You're targeting 4 enemies, and so blast allows you to blast cycle onto multiple enemies, hit 10 stacks quickly because of Tau, and just keep, again, killing lots of enemies. Primed Shred for the fire rate, super good. And the punch through as well if you are using the main fire. I'm not sure how punch through interacts with the alt fire. It seems like it doesn't. I'm not really sure. It reads that it does, but I don't know for sure. I've tried multiple times and the testing has been pretty inconsistent. So yeah, this does use the crit damage, which is pretty high, and the crit chance, which of the main fire is pretty good. But again, the crit stats are quite diminished when it comes to the alt fire. So this is my least favorite way to use the weapon, but it definitely works really well if you slap it onto your basic weapon platform slot kind of stuff. I do think primary crux is the best arcane on this weapon. I do have a experimental debilitate setup here, which just uses blast corrosive. In combination with that Tau, you are able to just get so many statuses onto enemies. It's hilarious. You can also use this with something like Roar or Jade Stars, whatever, to absolutely amplify the amount of damage you're doing and statuses you're applying. The only problem is you're going to be reloading a lot. Now, granted, this weapon has a sick-ass reload animation, so that might be not the worst thing in the world, but primary crux is both status chance and ammo efficiency. It caps out really quick. It's probably just best to slot. It's absolutely insane how much status chance on a weapon that is using Tau status to already apply more status in the first place. Absolutely bonkers, and this weapon is getting automated headshots, usually enough to keep primary crux up most of the time. So debilitate definitely gives you more damage. But the problem is, like, I would say DPS crux is always better because you're not having to reload, you don't have the insane status chance. But if you do have a very intentional debilitate setup, like maybe you know more about how to use it properly than I do, I use blast corrosive here because it's more experimental. This build is definitely still in the lab at the moment. I'm still experimenting. Vile acceleration is also, by the way, I think a really good option here. A lot of fire rate minus damage you don't really care as much about because, again, your goal is to just slap on statuses on statuses on statuses. But otherwise the build is pretty similar. This is the support build. This is the build I use with Protea at the moment and a couple other frames. You can swap out this, like, for example, if you're using Gyre instead, like you would use electricity here, you can switch up the build. This build is meant for just, again, priming viral, applying a bunch of heat, and this build, all 3 of these builds, even the support build here, will kill the steel path enemies very quickly. It's just a matter of what it's meant for, right? Again, you could definitely do a viral heat crit setup. Like, that's in the cards, absolutely possible. I'm not like, that would be a very strong build. I just have these 3 builds here because I think they work pretty uniquely. If you built this like you would your standard run-of-the-mill assault rifle with like viral and heat, and the crit stats, the crit investment, you would probably get something pretty solid here. But these are the more creative builds I've went with. Again, I think Blast is just really, really strong when it comes to Tau because it lets you proc it over and over and over and over and over, the 10 stacks. And the support build here is just really strong. I would say generally leaning towards the Tau stuff and the alt fire stuff and the status stuff is just stronger than investing in crit. If you want to use LMG for crit, do whatever you want. It doesn't, but I genuinely think that the gimmick of this weapon is what makes it really, really strong, and it's kind of what you should be building towards. So yeah, I think 2 Forma, primary crux, more basic mods. You don't need anything super niche here. Get some fire rate, get the statuses you want, chamber, aptitude, the whole shebang. If you want to invest more in crit, you absolutely can. This weapon has the stats to do that. I just think you might be better off looking in the market for a different weapon if that's your goal. And then just to show you guys the Protea build I've been using in the background footage, of course, I made an entire fashion frame for her, for the Haalvu. Pretty proud of it, looks pretty sick. I'm pretty excited about this weapon, as you can tell, I'm sure. It's just very, very cool. This is the Protea build, so this build actually does use her Temporal Anchor with Temporal Erosion. Obviously, unfortunately, it doesn't really do anything against enemies that don't have armor. It's kind of a dead slot, but it's so disproportionately good against enemies with armor that I still find it worth using. We have Sculptor here, so we take out Dispensary for Jade Stars. This is basically just full-on bullet hell Protea. Jade Stars is just really fun. It's really an uptime based subsume, which is really unique compared to Roar, even though I do still prefer Roar on Protea. With the Haalvu and with this Protea setup, you're able to play Protea really fast and loose and just play for fun, running around like a crazy person, as opposed to my usual playstyle, which is a very campy, sit down, like make a fort basically, and just hang out. Concentration here, and basically the goal of this build is to proc Jade Stars off of your turret, off of the Haalvu, off of the grenade fan, and then occasionally use your Temporal Anchor bomb to blow up priority targets. Unfortunately, like, Temporal Anchor just needed like a little more time in the oven as an ability. Nuking with it is just a clunky process, but generally, like, being able to essentially strip enemies' armor in like 2 to 3 seconds with Shrapnel, Vortex, and Blaze Artillery is really, really strong. This build absolutely just demolishes armored enemies. It allows Shrapnel Vortex, whose damage usually falls off pretty hard. When you're able to prime with the Haalvu, your viral, your heat, it's proccing Jade Stars as well, and all the armor is getting stripped off. Grenade Fan plus Jade Stars is actually a super great combo. Not to mention, obviously, the Blaze Artillery doing super good. So yeah, this is a very, this is one of the most fun Protea builds I've ever used. It's not how I prefer to play her, but it's definitely a really, really fun one, and it's a very mobile, quick setup. And yeah, Arcane Sculptor's broken as shit, as you could probably guess. Overall, this weapon is an absolute beast. While in terms of raw output, unbuffed, I don't think it can really hang in the S tier. It definitely does have one of the single best weapon designs in the entire game. I mean, like, the alt fire mechanic, the sounds, the animations for the alt fire, the reload animations, everything in this weapon is satisfying, and there's no real substantial downsides that it has. It's just that, like, the S tier options are very, very broken, right? It's got the base stats that can back most builds up. Stats I would normally say, again, slot it into more like B tier, but I genuinely think that the support setups and the uniqueness of Tau status allow it to easily transcend that B tier. I can happily put the Haalvu into A tier, 2 A's. For Haalvu, right? It just has such a unique place, right? Proccing Tau, the automatic multi-targeting, the great fire rate, being a battery weapon. It just has such an insane package that it can't go lower than A, in my opinion. It just works really well. There are no glaring downsides. It's just, again, the S tier is just really unbalanced, really, really strong, right? One thing that I think is worth commenting on before I leave real quick is that if you're looking for the next Aki Core primary, this isn't really that. It's not that strong. It's very strong, but it's nowhere near the Aki Core. I don't really like the Aki Core gameplay style, so it doesn't really affect me much. But something to just keep in mind is that in terms of like the ease of use, even though it's not dealing Aki Core damage, the ease of use on this weapon is like the Aki Core. And so, like, if you are looking to use it as a support weapon, it's not one that you have to use very sentiently. Pun intended, right? You can kind of just point it in the direction, run around. As a matter of fact, the auto targeting sometimes really incentivizes you to run around because it will just shoot the closest targets within 10 meters, 40-degree range, which is just lame. Like, you're not really going to get as much priming as you want, compared to if you have like the Epitaph or like a larger AoE weapon like the Cedo, or the Cedo or the Bubonico. Like, this is actually a primer that wants you to move around a lot in the way that the Occucore might have you do for DPS. So just keep that in mind. I think the auto targeting can be a little bit annoying. I think the fact that, you know, you might have to stand back a little bit so you can actually hit targets you want to hit, is a little bit frustrating, but generally A tier, very satisfied with this weapon. I think it's a lot of fun. If you couldn't pick it up, I'm super sorry. Hopefully you can get it in the future update when it comes out. And thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the series. Love you lots, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.